Our values determine the metrics by which we measure ourselves and everyone else. Have you ever wondered why do you do the things that you do? Have you wanted to get rid of your bad habits and make better decisions over time consistently? Have you started your self-development journey or even thinking about improving yourself, but you don't know how to actually get there? You know you have a goal, you know you want to fix your body, you want to fix your diet, you want to fix your relationship, you want to fix a job or career for yourself, but you just have no idea where to start. Well, in this video, I'm going to explain the only thing that you need to be able to answer all of these questions. This is part 2 in my mini-series regarding self-awareness and defining our own core values. In this video, I want to answer 2 questions. What is self-awareness and how can we build more of it? And then I'm going to be continuing my conversation from my last video in this mini-series and tell you guys about how we can build more self-awareness by defining our values. I actually want to show you how to define your values by showing you my system, a practical implementation of defining our values. So by the end of this video, you should have documented your values, defined the challenges you're going to face if you are going to live in alignment with those values, the metrics that you're going to use to measure yourself against those values, and even their prioritization. I will give you some of my rules of thumb. I will show you how I document everything. I will even show you my own values with examples and how I connect my values to future goals and actual actions I take every day, and even categorize them in different areas of my life so that I understand in what area of my life do I hold that value as one of my core principles and standards. Honestly, it doesn't get any better than that. So let's get right in. So let's quickly talk about self-awareness and how values even connected to self-awareness in the first place. I touched upon this a little bit in the part 1 of this mini-series. And if you haven't watched that, I do recommend you go watch it. The link is right up here. But to really make you guys understand the relationship between values and self-awareness, let me just give you an example. Self-awareness has 3 layers, and this is not my original idea. I actually took it from the book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, which is honestly one of my favorite books, which talks a lot about values and self-awareness. But basically, you can subdivide your self-awareness into 3 layers. Layer 1 is understanding your emotions, is putting yourself and your actions under the lens and looking at when you feel a certain emotion. For example, this is when I feel sad, this is when I feel happy, this is when I'm upset, and this is when I'm excited. This is easy to do, and all you need to do is to really think about the actions you've taken in a certain day, or when you talked back to a colleague, or you did something you later regretted. The second layer then is to ask, why do I feel those certain emotions? When I do something, I feel a certain emotion, and layer 2 is taking a step back further and looking at, why do I feel the way I do? Or why do I do the actions I do? As you can tell, this layer is going to get even harder to get to, because sometimes answering these questions of why do you feel the way you do might take years to actually get to. But the point here is not to get to the answer. The point is here to build that self-awareness to ask yourself those questions. Now you might ask, why should I even do this step? The objective of this step is for you to get to the root cause of your emotions, to understand where do they actually come from. Sometimes you even realize these emotions that you feel, the root cause of them are not even from you. They are from your insecurities, they are from your upbringing, they might be from your parents, or how you've interacted with your life as you grew up. I literally implemented this step for myself in the past year, and to be honest, I have built so much self-awareness by genuinely looking at how I feel, comparing my actions to the way I thought I was going to act in a situation, and then really going deep and asking myself, why did I do that? Why did I act like that? Why did I feel a certain emotion in that situation? And to be honest, I recommend you do the same, but we are even gonna dig 1 layer more deeper, because that's where the values come in. And you guessed it, the 3rd layer is our personal values. This layer answers the question of the why behind everything: your emotions, your actions, the way you consider something successful or failure, your standards and principles for judging yourself and everybody around you, and the metrics that you choose to measure yourself with. So simply put, your personal values are the most fundamental, most important layer that you need to define to understand more about yourself and to build more self-awareness. This is because everything we feel in a given situation, all the actions we take in a given situation, always comes down to this layer of how valuable do we perceive that outcome to be. And to be honest, instead of focusing on tips and tricks, 5-minute hacks to build motivation or discipline or whatever, all you need to do is to focus on building more self-awareness by defining your values. Because when you have this fundamental layer, you can do whatever you want after it. You can control how you feel in a certain situation. And the important thing to note here is that there are good values and there are bad values. So going on this journey of defining your values and figuring out the why behind your actions and emotions, it's really important because you might define them wrong, or you might misdiagnose the actual reason, the root feelings and emotions that you have behind your actions. So this whole part 2 of this mini series is about helping you and guiding you and giving you a practical system that you can use to define your values. So how about I show you guys how we're actually going to implement this together. Let's jump in. So if you go in the description of this video, there should be a link for all of my templates. When you open that page, you should see something like this. Under my other template section, you can see template personal values, and this is exactly what you're going to use to follow along and define your values with me. When you open it, you actually see a simple database, nothing more, called core values. You have the value name here, the priority, challenge, metric, related area, mood board, and last edited. What you have to understand is that we are going to use this database to define our values and actually track everything so we can come back to and edit them if we need to. But for you to understand this a bit better, I'm going to first show you my own database and how I use it in my system. So if I jump into my second brain setup, which by the way, I have an 8-part mini series about, you can go and have a look at if you want to actually build something similar for yourself, you will first of all see my setup. So you can see areas, values, goals, projects, tasks, knowledge hub, and content tracker. And this area, the values, is the one that we're actually going to focus on the most. Without getting too much into my second brain setup, what you have to understand is that, hey, I have some areas of my life. These are just general ongoing domains of my life, which I actually subcategorize my life into. So I have productivity, home, gym, languages, travel. I also have business areas such as my 9-to-5 job, my YouTube, other businesses, investments, and so on and so forth. Then what I do is I come and look at each of these areas and define my core values, my principles, my decision-making ideals, who I really am in those areas of my life. And this allows me to then only focus on those values within that area. So for example, you can see a list of my values here and their related areas. So each value is connected to a related area. Also, I connect them to goals. I actually have challenges and so on and so forth. But the template you have is slightly different. If you want to have exactly what you see here with my second brain setup, you can go and copy my second brain setup if you would like and watch those videos. But for this template and for this personal values database that we're going to build together, I am solely going to focus on the values, and we're not really going to worry about relating them to a lot of different areas of our life. So now, before we actually dig in and define our values together, I first have to explain the properties for you. The first thing you can see is that each database has 2 views. You can see that there are active values and all values. Active values are the ones that you're still currently living in alignment with. All values will list basically all the values that you've ever had. And what you can do is you can actually archive some values that you are not actively living in alignment with anymore. And the way we do that is we do it with a property called archived, and it's basically a checkbox. All you have to do is to tick it, and those specific values will then jump into the other section. So for example, if I just make a test value here, if I just click archive, you can see my test will go into my all values and there will be a checkbox. So it will go to the bottom of the list. So let's close that. We have that checkbox. The value itself is obviously the sentence that you're going to write that defines that specific core value that you have. The priority value is for value prioritization, which we will talk about in part 3 of this mini series. But basically, What it is nothing more than a select field with low priority, medium priority, and high priority. And we're going to use this to actually prioritize our different values. We're going to have maybe 12, 13 values. And what we want to do is we want to actually separate them into their own sections. Next, the property of challenge is basically going to define in a sentence or two what are the challenges that you're going to face if you want to live in alignment with that specific value. So for example, if one of my values is to love my body, go to the gym, the challenge there for me is going to be to actually consistently go to the gym, learn about losing weight, learn about how to actually build muscle at the gym, and so on and so forth. And just putting the challenges there is going to already make that value a lot more realistic, right? And that actually is a very important point of defining good values versus bad values. Good values are always realistic. There are things that you can actually achieve. Next, we have another property called the metric, and this is the metric that I'm going to use to measure myself when I am living in alignment with that specific value. For example, just for the example that I said, love my body, go to the gym and lose weight and so on and so forth, you might imagine the metric here would be my actual weight, the number I see on the scale. But that's actually not true. The metric I use should not be tied to a specific number. That's how you measure goals, not values. So what I recommend here is to put something more abstract. So for example, my metric for that area would not be the number I see on the scale, because every time that I don't meet that specific number, I'm going to feel shit about myself. And that's why I hate goals in the first place. What I can put here instead is my metric is how good I feel after I go to the gym. In my second brain setup, I also relate everything to a specific area of my life. But because I want this template to be an all-in-one place inclusive section that you can come and write all your values, and you don't need a second brain or anything for it, I just added a property here called related area. So obviously if I'm talking about gym and all of that, the related area is going to be health. So you can just add that here. By the way, this is a multi-select field, so it can be health. It can also be related to my family, because my health relates to my family as well. And if I don't feel good and if I'm unhealthy, my family is also not going to be happy. So it's relating to both areas. And as you can see, I already listed a few areas here for yourself that you can pick. I just literally copied these from my own second brain setup. So basically, if you have any other areas of your life, general ongoing domains, categories in your life, you can just list them here. Great. Final property is called a mood board, and this is an attachment file. The way I thought about it was, if I want to imagine my life living in alignment with one of these core values that I define for myself, I want to be able to really concretely imagine that. And what I do with a mood board then is I go and capture different images from the internet that actually relate to that area and that value, and actually put them here. So what that does is that creates that image in my head very clearly, so that when I define my values, set my priority, define my challenges, metrics, and related areas, all of that, I can actually have a concrete feeling and a concrete vision of how my life can look like when I live in alignment with that. So for example, if I'm talking about healthy and going to the gym and so on and so forth, here I can put a couple of images, even images I took myself with my own phone when I felt good about myself, to capture those good emotions, those moments in my life that I was my happiest when I live in alignment with that value. I don't know if I ever go and compete in a bodybuilding competition, I can have images when I'm on the stage and so on and so forth, right? And if I don't have those images myself, I can obviously find it from other humans, and I can get it from the internet and put it here. Pinterest is a very interesting place that you can collect some images for your mood board yourself. Don't worry, we'll do an example together, and I think you will really then understand what this is all about. And last but not least, we have an auto-generated property called the last edit, and this is just whenever you add new things into these properties or actually edit a specific page, this last edit will automatically get updated to tell you when was the last time you actually revisited this value. Simple as that. Makes total sense. Okay. Now we understand the template. Now we understand the properties that we're going to have for each of our values. We understood what values are from the previous video and the introduction to this video. Now what we want to do is to actually define it. This is the difficult part. This is actually how we're going to define our values. We're going to write them down and then track them. The way I like approaching defining my values is to not really restrict myself into a specific workflow. And there are many articles and many books and stuff talking about having values in a specific way. Or there's a list that you have to pick and the values needs to be just one sentence or one word even sometimes, as you see here. I personally am not a huge fan of that. So for example, if I want to actually define my values by just one word, it's going to be very difficult for me to come back to them at a later point and understand what did I actually mean by that word. So for example, if my value is patience, what does that look like in a specific area, in a specific situation in my life? I don't know. So I don't like limiting myself by just one word. If you like it, you can actually put it in your values as words instead of full sentences. But the way I like to actually define my values is to be as descriptive as possible. So for example, let's take my value of wellness, right? So one can just put wellness as the value if you want to put one word, or you can have a more descriptive way of writing it, which is what I like to do. As you can see, my value is feel healthier, look good in the mirror, love your body, and look after it. This is literally one of the core things that I want to have in my life. I want to feel healthier. I want to be like that. That is my identity. I am a person that goes to the gym, you know? And you can be as long or as short as you want when you define this value. The priority for this, for me, is super high. You can define your priorities better when you have the full list of your values. We'll get to that later. The challenge here is obviously consistently going to the gym, exercising, keeping a diet, learning about how to lose weight and gain muscle. You can list as many challenges here as you need, but what this does, it actually makes it realistic to go after that core value. It makes it predictable. I already know I'm going to have these challenges. So when I do have those challenges, I'm not going to immediately give up and be like, okay, I have this challenge, so I'm not going to do it anymore. In fact, I know those challenges exist. I'm going to actually suffer through them and live in alignment with my value because that's who I am. Right. The metric that I'm going to measure myself with, as I explained earlier. So the metric I'm going to measure myself with is going to be how I feel after every gym session. I can continue and actually describe this more. If I feel happy, this value. Great. What area does it relate to? It relates to the area of health and family. Next, I have to define my mood board, and let's say for this as an example, I jump to Pinterest and quickly search for CBUM gym motivation. As you guys know, CBUM is basically the Mr. Olympia right now, and all I do is just go and pick the images that really resonate with me, download them and copy them into my system. Simple as that. And there you go. I'm building myself a mood board here. And as you can see, I can see the image showing up here. So at any point in my life, I can come back to this value. And if I want to remind myself, what did I mean and what did my life look like when I live in alignment with that specific value, I have the image here for myself. You can also do it for some other stuff. I really like this image, for example. This is usually actually how I feel at the gym. I am finding my demons. I'm really in my own head thinking a lot about how I feel and my actions in that day and the day before that. So it's actually a perfect image for me to also put here. There you go. So you can build your mood board here as well. And last edited, obviously September 18th is when I'm shooting this at 12:14 in the afternoon. Awesome. So that's how we actually defined one of our first values. As you see, there is no strict way of doing it. All you have to think about is to think about the why behind your actions. If my action is to go gym every day or every other day, the value that I have behind that action and the feelings that come with it is what you actually see here. The value is wellness, is to feel healthier, to look good in the mirror, love my body and look after it. And actually, every single time that I want to go to the gym and I don't feel like going and I'm tired and I can't be asked, I remind myself with this value. And by just once looking at the value, I already feel a lot better about myself. And when I feel better about myself, I don't need motivation. I need discipline. And my discipline is the commitment I have to my own core values. Does that make sense? If you can define core values for all areas of your life, your principles, the standards of your living, then you can control your actions and emotions a lot better than if you don't have values. And as I said, this whole video is about building self-awareness. So if you can build your values, I'm not saying it's easy and these will change over time, but if you can build them, then you have so much more self-awareness, then you understand so much more about your own actions. And when you understand why you do the things you do, and you can choose to live in alignment with good values instead of bad values, you just take more and more actions consistently over time in alignment with those values. And the goals that you need to achieve, the results that you want to get, the success will 100% of the time come itself. You don't even need to define goals. You don't even need to say, I want to get to 100K. You don't even need to say, I want to get to 90 kilograms. If you live in alignment with those values that you define and take actions in alignment with them consistently, then you're going to get to that 90 kilograms anyway. And the time frame of it doesn't matter. As long as you consistently do it, you will get there. And this is literally how you can achieve anything. Taking from money or losing weight or building a relationship and so on and so forth. It is always consistent actions over time. That's how the compounding effect comes into play. And that's how you actually get to your results. What people do is the wrong thing. People actually define a goal and then try to push themselves to achieve that goal every time by motivation. Motivation doesn't work. Motivation is right out the window the day the weather is bad, the day that you can't be asked to work on your business, the day that you are angry at your partner or colleague. So building those relationships, losing that weight, building a successful business, they always come down to those atomic actions that you take that, guess what, come from your values. So I really hope you understand the power that these values really have for your life. So just to give you guys more examples, let's look at another one. Here is another value that I have: constantly learn new things and consume content you love. The priority for this is not as high as, let's say, living in alignment with wellness. And if I want to add one word for this, I can just type learning. And then obviously the challenges of it here. What should I learn and prioritize every time I want to learn something? What form, like YouTube, books, podcasts, are the best form for me, and what actually works the best for me? And all I need to do by writing this challenge now, I know what I need to go figure out to actually live in that alignment more. And when I figured it out, I can change the challenge. And if there's no challenge, I can leave it empty. Simple as that. What is the metric that I'm going to actually use to measure myself to live in alignment with that value? Is not how many books I read, because I don't care about the number, is how effective are those books in my life. So the metric I measure myself with is basically how often I actually use the things I learn in my own life. And if I actually don't use it that often, then I know that I'm not really living in alignment with that value. Although I might be learning new things, if I don't use it, I might as well have not learned it, because it's pointless, right? And the related area obviously can be related to everything, but mostly for me, I like to learn a lot about mindset and productivity. So for me, this specific value relates to the area of mindset and productivity, and now I can actually go and create a mood board for it. And that's it. And that's how you define your values, and you can continue going on and on for all the areas of your life so that you actually finish those. And by the way, you don't need just one value per area. You can have as many values as you need, but just don't push it more than what you need to do. Just literally 1, 2, 3 values max per area is already enough. So for example, for myself, when I did this, I just look at all the areas of my life, think of myself, who do I want to be in that area? What is the lifestyle I imagine I have within that area of my life? Then I go and create a value for it. So I really hope this template and the examples and this video help you understand what values are and help you go on the journey to actually build more self-awareness and define your own core values. And in part 3, I want to talk about the tips and tricks that I actually learned throughout the process the past year, that I actually dabbled with my own values, defining them, redefining them, and actually realizing some of them are absolutely wrong. So we talk about discipline, motivation, setting goals, again a lot more in depth. We'll talk about value prioritization, which we talked about a bit today, but I want to dig in a bit more deeper there. And we will even talk about value metrics again, and how these metrics that we're defining are actually super important for ourselves to be able to measure ourselves against those values. And if we don't live in alignment with those values, and if those metrics time and time again tell us that we are not living in alignment with those values, then we should maybe kick those values out and replace them or change them. That's why we have metrics. That's it. I hope you liked this video, and don't forget to download the template from the description down below and use it to define your own values. And if you have questions, please leave them down below. If not, if you enjoyed this, leave a like, subscribe, or even share it to some of your friends, so that they can also go on the journey of building more self-awareness and defining their own core values. That's about it, guys. I hope to see you guys in part 3 of this mini series, which will be the next video uploaded on the channel. Peace.